I am this morning with Johan Norberg. Johan, how are you? You well?
I am, thank you. Good to be with you.
Delighted to have you with me. So let's get cracking. Your newest book, you asked the question, we live at a time of unprecedented wealth and opportunity. So why are we intent on ruining it? What made you write a whole book around that single question? And is there one or two single action points we can take away on a really surface level which can drive us forward?
Those are two very good questions. And I'd say that being a historian and trying to learn something from the human experience makes you an optimist. You have to be an optimist if you see what mankind has gone through and what our forefathers survived to get us here. But it also makes you a bit of a cynic because you notice that we've made major mistakes, stupid mistakes that sometimes ruined it all and made us lose lots of that progress. So I wanted to write a book about that, what makes progress possible, but also how we sometimes throw it away, not because of external enemies. That would be nice because it would be so easy. It's just good versus evil. It's more about our own double nature, the fact that we are both open-minded and we're very good at finding new mutual ground and opportunities to cooperate and trade and build businesses and innovation. But we also have a very closed-minded side. And whenever we feel threatened, we tend to experience this societal fight or flight instinct when we just escape or flee or fight. And that tends to ruin it for us.
So you've mentioned the future is ours to win or to lose. Are you hopeful looking to the future?
It's a mixed bag. I like to portray myself as a qualified optimist. When you look at what people do, what scientists and engineers and businessmen are doing all the time, you can see that we are solving problems faster than ever before. I mean, the great thing about the pandemic, the unique thing about the pandemic is not the pandemic. We've had many pandemics before. It's the fact that we began to vaccinate people against it within a year of even learning about the virus. So, I mean, we can see unprecedented progress all the time. But at the same time, and on the other hand, we can see both within our societies and from without that there are these societal fight or flight instincts. We tend to fear one another. The political climate gets even more partisan and hostile all the time. And some people really want to undermine openness and progress. So whether I'm an optimist long-term depends on whether all those scientists and entrepreneurs and innovators will get that freedom to continue to explore and experiment. In that case, we're safe.
In terms of global economics and where we stand, do you think it's going to go back to how we were pre-pandemic?
Unfortunately, history speaks loudly when it comes to pandemics. It tends to create this fear of others because, you know, the microbes come from somewhere else. And then we want to isolate ourselves a bit. We've seen that how everybody wants to renationalize supply chains and I think that's a very dangerous lesson because what I really think we learned from this pandemic was that trade actually saved us. The fact that the pandemic didn't strike every place simultaneously. So originally it was a Chinese disaster, and then they could import 2 billion face masks from us. But then eventually we suffered in Europe and in North America, but then Asian factories had begun to open up. So we could import face masks and personal protective equipment from them. So actually, global supply chains are more resilient than trying to have everything locally because most disasters are local by nature. And then when it strikes, everything falls apart. And we have also learned that we need international cooperation between scientists and big pharma to come up with treatments and vaccines. With that being said, history speaks loudly. We tend to become more fearful and isolated after a pandemic. The one thing that's different this time around compared to the Spanish flu or the Black Death is that hopefully, unless the mutations keep surprising us and surprising researchers, hopefully at some point we can say, now it's over. And then I think we'll be longing to go back out there into the lecture halls and the bars and the nightclubs.
How long did it take the human race to actually digest what's happened take the emotion out of it and learn from the whole thing? Because maybe are we too emotional right now?
Unfortunately, the worst moment to make decisions are when you need decisions the most, when you're in the midst of it, because then it's unpredictable and you don't know the important lessons. It'll take a couple of years, but unfortunately, we don't have a couple of years. And normally, I'd say that the shock effect is immediate, but the long-term lessons on how to change our lives, that depends on all the different experiments, everything that we're trying. And in a way, this has been a great experiment in trying something else, to try to do things more digitally and from a distance. And I think we've learned valuable lessons both on what works and what doesn't work. Lots of things could already have been done, but because of the constant delay that we have, because we're slow to react, and there are always vested interests and old habits. And now we've learned that we can do more things faster and on a distance as well. But we've also learned, I think, the most important lessons, and I think we'll find that out more as we begin to open up society again, that we really do miss lots of things, because you can have a Zoom meeting and you know what you're going to talk about and you know whom to talk to. But that's not where we get the great inventions and the serendipities, discoveries that are actually behind most of the great things that we hold dear. They come from, the water cooler or the cafe or the mingling after the lecture effect. When you find that surprising person who has a new perspective on what you have been doing for the last 5 years, and then something wonderful happens. It's difficult to imitate that online.
Right, and you host documentaries on development, economics, current affairs, and other subjects. Is there something that's surprised you that you wish more people knew about?
When I do documentaries specifically, I'm surprised by how little I know about the world. Something great happens when you come with a big camera, because suddenly you get access to people and places and factories and homes that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. And then, I mean, the lessons are obviously the very old lesson about how similar we are across the world and in different places, how much we want the same kind of things, but how different the institutional setting and the opportunities are depending on where you go. So to try to keep both of these things in mind, how we want the same things, but we face very different incentives. That's something that I'm learning all the time. One of the great discoveries to me over the last few years is that it is fairly easy to imitate success around the world. The moment you tweak institutions a little bit, you can begin to sort of take subsistence farmers and put them into factories, and you can begin to imitate the best technologies from richer places, and you can have rapid growth and you can reduce poverty, and that's a great thing. But the next step is much more difficult. Creating the kind of cultures, creating the kind of atmosphere where you welcome surprise and innovation that surprises yourself as well. And I think many authoritarian governments like China are finding that out now, that with great innovation comes great surprises and chaos, and that's not always something that's welcome. But I think many businesses realize that as well, and that's one reason why there's a glass ceiling to innovation in lots of businesses as well, because you have your own business model to protect, and it's difficult to venture away from that comfort zone.
Johan, thank you so much indeed for your time today. I look forward to speaking again soon.
Me too. Thanks for having me.